YouTube? What's up? What's up, ZZZ Proxy? It's your boy Josh, and today we got another tier list on our hands. We got another tier list, another classic tier list. If you guys are tired of tier lists, let us go through Zenless Zone Zero's 1.7 Prydwen tier list, because some people said it was actually pretty good. They actually made a pretty good introduction this time to Vivian. They actually placed her pretty well. I'm very curious to see where we're at meta-wise, because Prydwen is known to be one of the more well-known tier lists out there on the streets. Let's see if they got Vivian right. Let's see if they got Zenless Zone Zero right, folks. Also, if you guys want to catch my guide, wink wink, I also make guides and early access videos on YouTube. So you guys should subscribe and go check those videos out. Opinion: Vivian is cute AF. No, I agree, man. I agree. And that reason alone, she's enough to pull for me. Unsurprisingly, this list looks very similar to what we had in the past patches, right? Arguably, I think, did Evelyn go down? I played these games before, was always there. Okay, I'm tripping then. So why don't we start with the changes that didn't really matter? Let's start with the changes that don't really matter, because, you know, those are easy. Caesar to 0.5. Was she tier 0 before? I'll be honest. I'm surprised that they even put her in tier 0. Like, tier 0.5 and tier 1 is kind of where she sits at this point, because the buff from Jshoea is just so relevant. And arguably, you know, you could say that she matches with Lucy, which kind of makes sense. And Nicole should be up here too. So I think she was always here. I'm very surprised that she was even at tier 0 to begin with. Next, let's go to all the stuns. The stuns did not change, which makes sense. The stuns don't change because Vivian doesn't interact with stuns pretty much at all, with the exception of maybe Anomaly Lighter, which I think Anomaly Lighter is still somewhat relevant. If you guys want an alt build, go try it out if you guys would like, and get back to me on your findings. And let's go now to the steak. Right, we started with the hors d'oeuvres, and now we're at the steak. Miyabi tier 0. That makes sense. All right, she doesn't get hit. She's the overall best attacker in the game. That makes sense. Trigger needs to go down a little bit, you guys think? No, I think Trigger's still right now relevant as a tier 0 stun unit. Maybe at more budget, she definitely goes down to like 0.5 or 1. But like if you have her Wenjin and you have her fully kitted, she is pretty damn good as a stunner. IMO. We have Sambi, Bernice, and Evelyn before Vivian. And just to reiterate, this is how they put the list. I think it's in alphabetical order, correct? Please tell me it's alphabetical order. It's usually left to right. Lighter, Trigger, Caesar, Lucy, Nicole, Rena, QRS. I know my alphabet, chat. LP, JPZ. Vivian should be tier 0. She's crazy good. Ooh, okay. I think 0.5, in my estimation, as far as how they've defined the 0.5 tier, this makes sense. All 5 stars are M0 without weapons, and 4 stars are M6. Okay, that definitely makes sense then. That definitely makes sense. M0 with free-to-play W engine, with like Weeping Gemini, 100% goes in tier 0.5. If anything, I would even bump her down to tier 1, because right now, the game state benefits Anomaly. When it doesn't benefit Anomaly, she gets pumped down, with the exception of being paired with Miyabi, aka that's why she's in tier 0.5, because she can reach the highest level of damage, and she can be a part and contribute to the best teams right there, being up tier 0, but also she has a slightly lower floor. That could be tier 1. So I get that. Let's talk about her relative to some of these units. Vivian to Bernice. I know a lot of people are talking about Vivian and Bernice. Vivian or Bernice. IMO. Vivian is better. I assume this list is alphabetical order. So A, B, E, V, Y. That makes sense. Because if this was out of alphabetical order, Evelyn would be top, then Sambi, Vivian probably. That's probably how I would shake it down. Maybe even Soldier might be even that much lower, because right now we're in a anomaly relevant meta where these units actually can perform better than Soldier 0. But I digress, right? Because she's there because of Trigger. If you have Trigger, boom, top 3 comp in the game. Now, right, we're seeing Vivian become a slightly better Bernice, offer what Bernice and Yanagi have, right? Sorry, Prophecy Dot with the blooms. Vivian belongs at least in tier 0.5, which makes sense. So I kind of have to agree with this list. I think so far as where they place these characters, it's not bad, right? Because you want to reserve that tier 0 for Miyabi, the best character. And then these characters can't really match them, but they're damn close. So like if I were to like make a relative chart, so people are like, oh, this is one tier down, it's obviously much worse. I would say this is the relative tier list. So you have tier 0, and then you have, so just imagine like a vertical chart here. Tier 0.5, and then I would say tier 1 is right here, and then tier 2 is all the way down here. It is like a smaller jump, much larger jump, right? That's how I would categorize or visualize the relative scaling of this, because it's not as, you know, it's not as visible here. The difference between 0.0 and 0.5 is not that much different. 0.5 to 0.1, it's slightly larger. Tier 1 to tier 2, much larger. So hopefully this gives you guys a better idea of like, oh, okay. Now I can see like, okay, these units aren't even that bad. These units can probably just match Miyabi. They just have like 1 or 2 caveats. And then tier 1, that's when you start to see that drop off. And then tier 2, tier 3. No way she's on a level with Yanagi and Viv and Eve. You know what? Because Vivian would be in 0.5, I would low-key agree that Bernice jumps down here. But the matter of fact is that you can use the same units. You can interswap Vivian and Bernice. If you were to run a Miyabi Bernice Lucy comp, or a Miyabi Vivian Lucy comp, it would low-key be the same. Granted, she does more damage. She'll overall get you better production. So in that sense, relative, you push her down. I can understand that. But the matter of fact is that she'll still get amazing performance, and just as good as performance, if you can build it right, with the same exact team. So I think she kind of tiers at 0.5. I wouldn't think she's tier 1. In fact, one unit that I'm very curious that they put in tier 1, that they left in tier 1, was Jane Doe. Because guess who is the biggest beneficiary of Vivian? It's Jane Doe. Because these two units already do really well with each other. Jane Doe kind of felt left out a little bit, but because she's able to manipulate Bloom so well, I would think that Jane would jump up to 0.5. Well, Miyabi, okay, I'm not going to mention Miyabi. Why would I mention Miyabi? She's already up here. I can't glaze her enough. How much glaze do you want me to glaze? How much more glaze can I glaze? I've ran out. Triple glaze? I've glazed her enough. I've glazed her to glaze no more. When it comes to Jane Doe, I feel like she's definitely one of the biggest beneficiaries, and in comparison with Piper, Jane Doe is able to manipulate the blooms so much better. The feel of Jane Doe, it feels really good, man. Pause. Pairing her with Vivian is really stinking good. So I would have moved up her to 0.5, I'll be honest. Do people ignore elements? Would Vivian perform better against fiery bosses than Bernice or Evelyn? Very true, Sasquatch, right? Because meta's twofold. I agree, right? You got to put it into the context of how good these units are relative to each other, yet put in the context of what the enemies are and how they would perform against those enemies, right? 100%. How they would perform within the environment, or, you know, let's say PvP games, like how would they perform against other players? Understandable, right? And right now, there are a lot more ether benefiting factors, right? There is the fire ether bonus in DA, and then subsequently we might get like a physical ether bonus. Who knows? I assume that's what we're gonna get, because next DA should be Jane Doe Vivian specific, so thereby which we would see Jane Doe's usage go up way more, and also Piper in that sense. Jane is not tier 0.5 because nothing in DA is physically weak. Fair. You know what? I'll agree with you guys on that. I'm not that hard-headed to understand that, like, you know, understandably, Jane Doe against enemies aren't as great, but within the context of them working together, I think they work really well with each other, man. Maybe not tier 1, or sorry, maybe not tier 0.5, but man, she's really improved, I think, in my eyes. Especially paired, like, let's say the Jane Doe Vivian pairing is probably the best anomaly pairing for Jane overall. Like, you go Jane, Yanagi, Jane, Bernice. I think Jane Vivian's been really damn good. Tier 0.75. yeah, there you go. 0.75. But as so far as Vivian, I just want to take a look at the changelogs just very quickly. Tier list in update patch 1.7 and possibly 2.0 will have a big focus on improving tier list design and criteria. Blah, blah, blah. The biggest change aside from the introduction of partner tag is our tier list is going to be solely based on Shia defense, 2 Shia defense, and deadly assault combined. This change will lead to placements on certain characters fluctuating as we reevaluate our characters and how they're assessed. With that being said, as the meta from both game modes remains very similar, we deem both combining the modes makes most sense instead of doing the separate tier list for both. This way our tier list serves as a means to assess how good characters' in-game performance are of our account as a whole. And then overall changes, we talked about Vivian, Soldier, Ambi. Watch list was removed after further testing. We concluded Ambi's performance, even with Trigger, does not get her to approach Miyabi's level, therefore she will not be moving, which makes sense. Yanagi is so much better, and Eve, I think Yanagi is insane. Yanagi is insane, 100%. As an Eve simp, I think she should be tier 0. Eve and Astro Yao are really damn good. Eve, Astro Yao, and Lighter, that team is fun. And it's not only that the damage is good, but it feels good to play. You know? It feels so good to play. And it's so rewarding when you hit like 5-6 chains. Caesar down to 0.5. Caesar's placement has been in flux for many phases, not questioning her placement on the top of the meta. So this patch we're making a change. Caesar's score unfortunately does not get Astro Yao level, and discrepancy is enough when dropping her to 0.5. However, note that she remains the most comfortable support to use in any team thanks to her huge sustainabilities and her interruption resistance. Ellen from tier 1.5 to 2. Performance in recent shield defense and especially deadly assault cycles have lowered. Over time, the time has accumulated to her average performance is closer to that of Soldier 11's than Haramasa. For this reason, she's unfortunately joining her in the tier. But know that neither are unviable and can perform well that are still in the meta character bracket. Understandably, most folk coming into Zenless Zone 0 might not understand that we're going into a new whole patch of 2.x. So maybe they're like, oh yeah, I'll just pull for the character. Yeah, I don't know anything. I'll just pull for whoever's on the banner, right? But they don't make up the majority of sales. Who makes up the majority of sales? Who makes up the majority of those who are considered, you know, pullers and yada yada yada? It's like the smaller minority, right? The vocal small minority. So when it comes to, you know, people, quote unquote, who we perceive that are actually pulling, not a lot of people are pulling. But actually, still quite a lot of people are pulling just because we just don't know that they're pulling. You know what I mean? Unless ZZ doesn't inflate HP like HSR, old characters will become useless. And also, they are looking to improve previous characters, right? They tested out Lost Void extra attacks on Jane Doe, Piper, Corin, Nekomata, Billy, right? Ellen Joe. They added a bunch of extra attacks, and they're testing out to see if these will actually really help out the overall feel, playstyle, and performance of the character. So I think those changes that we are going to see down, you know, maybe 3 months, 6 months in the future are going to be really good for this tier list to be able to not necessarily balance it out, because I'll be honest, this tier list is relatively balanced in terms of like, oh, you have the top units and then you slowly cascade down, right? But there will be more tier 2, tier 1 units, right? These units should pop up more, and then we might see, I don't even know if we see any more tier 3, tier 4, except for, you know, the characters who don't get considered, aka Anton, aka Ben. All right, but overall, not a bad list. Although I would like to see the relative position, but I understand that they just want to make it a little bit more fluid. But what do you guys think about this tier listing? Vivian, I think Vivian deserves her flowers. 0.5 is a great place to be, and she'll only get more viable as time moves on because she's in the anomaly class, right? If the series was based on who would be the hottest, Oiled Up, then Lighter would be unanimous triple S tier. Where do we stray? When did we stray off the path of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? What happened, chat? What happened? So make sure you guys subscribe over there on Twitch. And with that, thank you guys so much for joining today's video. I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys like, go comment, do your part, chat. Click on this next video because YouTube thinks you'll like it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Josh out.